Hey everyone, welcome back to PyNet Labs and me again, this side your trainer and your instructor. We are going to conduct this series of Q&A, which is all about routing and switching questions, BGP, OSPF. And as we are back on every Sunday live 8 p.m. So this in this today's Q&A series, today we are going to talk about the questions which are specifically from your OSPF and BGP part, and these are very much important questions as per the aspect of interview, or if you are checking it as per the aspect of global examination. So let's get started with these questions. The very first question we are going to have in today's Q&A series is going to be, which command is used to redistribute the routes into OSPF and in Cisco iOS specifically? So whenever we are doing the redistribution, guys, we know that it is all about making the communication possible between two different protocols. Suppose on one side, if you are going to have EIGRP, and on the other side, if you are going to have OSPF. So how you are going to redistribute the routes of OSPF in that case? So for that, in such scenario, we are going to use the command redistribute EIGRP because we are redistributing the routes of OSPF into EIGRP. That's the correct answer for this question, which is going to be the option number B that says redistribute EIGRP. Back to the second question, guys. What is the purpose of BGP update message? So in order to go with that, you must have a good understanding of the BGP part, which says there are some types of messages in BGP. So talking about the BGP update message, here are some options just to establish a BGP session. So when we say establishing a BGP session, it is all about making the neighbor relationship up between two BGP peers. So that's not going to be the answer. Second one says to advertise new BGP routes. Third says to withdraw the previous advertised BGP routes. Or the last one, the option D, says to synchronize the BGP routers. So over here, in case of BGP update message is going to advertise new BGP routes. So the correct answer is going to be the option number B over here. Because whenever BGP is announcing the reachability, let's say this update message is going to inform the neighbor routers about the reachability of the network, where the routers are going to learn about new routes or withdraw any existing route. So it's going to just send an update to the neighbor routers informing that there is a change in the network topology. Or if anything new comes up, then this update message is being generated. So the correct answer for this question is going to be the option number B we have. Then after that, we have this question number 33, which says which of the following characteristic of OSPF stub area it is. Means we got some options. First, it allows external routes. It has a single exit point. It must be connected to backbone area and multiple exit points, the last option. But now from these following pointers, it's just asking us that what is the following, or which one of the following is going to be the characteristic for OSPF stub areas. So we are going to say that in OSPF, stub area is just some kind of area within OSPF network that has have a limited connectivity to the rest of OSPF autonomous system. Means it is particularly designed to reduce the amount of routing information within that area, which can also help in improving network efficiency. So this concept we exactly call it as, some kind of single exit point in stub area, which refers to the default behavior of OSPF in such kind of areas. So from all these four characteristics which are mentioned for OSPF stub area, external routes is not going to be there. Must be connected to backbone area. The option C, it's not there because that's a mandatory aspect for every other multiple area we have. And multiple exit points for sure, that's not going to be the correct answer. So over here, the correct answer is going to be the option number B because it says it has a single exit point. Because over here in stub areas, we will be using a default route to represent all the routes among the areas, and this default route will advertise the ABR into the stub area. So therefore, the routers within the stub area will directly forward the traffic which is destined for external networks towards a single exit point using the area border router. So that's the correct answer and correct explanation for the question number 20, this 33. Then we have the question number 34. Which routing protocol uses the concept of areas to divide the network into smaller and more manageable segments. Quite easy, guys. We all know that OSPF is only one of the protocol that is going to use the concept of areas just to divide the network. And why we are going to use this concept of areas? It's just because whenever we are using these areas, we know OSPF is a kind of device which is not bounded to have specific number of hops. We are allowed to use as many as routers we want to use. So if we are using a lot of routers, in that case, a lot of database will be generated, and that database will also you know result in utilization of bandwidth, and at the same time it will also utilize the resources of the network device you are going to use. So over here, OSPF is the only protocol which is going to use the concept of areas, where we can logically segment the areas by just putting up the OSPF routers into multiple areas or single areas as well. So answer for the question number 34 is going to be your OSPF over here, because that is the only protocol that is using the concept of areas. Back to the question number 35. What is the purpose of OSPF link state database? So in the purpose of OSPF link state database, guys, we know that there are some kind of terminologies OSPF is going to use, like link state advertisements, link state database, SPF algorithm, other more terminologies are there. Let's see the options. What are the options given to us? So over here, it is just about the first option is going to say that it is going to store the information for OSPF neighbors. No, not correct, because the routers, or if you are checking the neighborship status, you just need to verify the neighbor table, not the link state database. Now, what's the second option? To store the information about OSPF areas. Might be we can say this point is correct. But also let's see the third point, to store information about OSPF routers and their link state advertisements. Fourth option says to store the information about OSPF routes and metric over here. Now, this means whenever we are talking about these link state databases, in order to function over OSPF, we know that OSPF is going to use link state advertisement, which are just a type of packet which is used in between the OSPF routers to exchange the database. So we can say that this link state database will also store the information about the areas, but over here, as per these four pointers, the correct answer will be the option number C, because all the link state advertisements will be stored in the link state database, and it will give the OSPF a complete picture of the routing domain, that how we are going to use it over here. So it is just about topology awareness. These link state database will store a map of entire OSPF areas, and each router within the OSPF domain maintains an identical copy of the database, and it includes the information about the routers, the linked state advertisements, and their respective states, just such as the link is in the up state or it is in the down state. So option number C is going to be the correct answer. Now back again on this pointer, which is question number 36. In BGP, what is the purpose of AS path attribute? So talking about this AS path attribute, guys, it is just something you can say it do serves multiple purposes. First is to avoid loop prevention, path selection, policy enforcement, and path validation and authentication. Such kind of things are there when we are dealing up with, BGP attributes. Now we got some options here for this question. The purpose of AS path attribute. The first option says to specify the ASN number. No, not really. To prevent routing loops. Yes, this might be an answer. And C says to indicate a path of autonomous system and the routes that has been traversed. And the last option to determine the route exit point from the autonomous system. So for sure, the option number A and option number D are not the correct answer. But as it is just only asking you to define the purpose of AS path attribute. See, the point number B, the prevent loops, that can be a correct answer because it contains the list of autonomous system. The AS path is also used in preventing the loops. But the you can say that BGP routers will use this information to avoid routing loops just by refusing to accept the routes that contain their own ASN number within the AS path attribute. But over here, it's just talking about the attribute, right? Not about the loop prevention mechanism or anything like that. So C is going to be the correct answer because over here, the ACE path is going to indicate the path of ACE number from which the route has been traveling. So you can say that BGP routers will use the ACE path length as a metric by default for selecting the best path towards the destination, and shorter the ACE path is more preferred over longer one when you are selecting the routes, because BGP routers aims to choose the path with the least number of autonomous system it has crossed through. So according to the attribute, the correct answer for this is going to be the option number C. Now over here we have a question number 37 that says which command is used to configure a default route in OSPF. So talking about the default route in OSPF, you can see that default route 0.0.0, that doesn't make any sense, and that's not any kind of command. IP route 0.0.0, 0.0.0. This is pretty much used in default routing scenarios, but this time we are talking about OSPF default route configuration. An IP default gateway is not really the command. So option number C, the default information originate command is going to be there. And we are going to use this command in order to make sure that we are going to configure default routes in OSPF. Just to make sure we are going to have multiple other connectivities with multiple other routers. Now back to the question number 38. In OSPF, what is the purpose of OSPF router ID? So guys, everybody knows what is router ID. Just take your time. Just please do let me know the answer for the same on the comment box. Yes, guys, was waiting for your answer. Over here, you all know that router ID in OSPF. It is just used to identify the routers in OSPF process. So the number of routers which you are deploying in OSPF, that must be having some identification. So for this question number 38, the correct answer is going to be the option number A, to uniquely identify OSPF router in the network, because that's just going to be an identification for the OSPF routers, and they'll use this following term, which is OSPF router ID, where there are some criterias for the router ID. The first is always going to be your manually configured router ID. Second is the highest loopback interface. And third criteria goes to the highest IP on the active physical interface. That's where the answer number A is correct for the question number 38. Now back to the question number 39. What is the purpose of link state advertisement? Now guys, to advertise the network routes within the OSPF area, to determine the administrative distance of OSPF routes, option C says to establish OSPF neighbor agencies, and D says to flood the routing information throughout the entire OSPF domain. As in the last question also, I was telling you that OSPF is consist of link state advertisements, and this is just a kind of building blocks which OSPF is going to use for it, right? So over here, these link state advertisements are going to be used in case of flooding the routing information throughout the entire OSPF domain, because if the link state advertisements are not exchanged, then we will not be able to make sure that the data should be transmitted and how OSPF will have the entire routing domain information. So the option number D is going to be the correct answer for the question number 39. Now back to the last question, guys. What is the primary purpose of BGP route reflectors? So it says to reduce the number of BGP pairing sessions, to increase the convergence speed of BGP. No, not really. To prevent routing loops. No. To improve the scalability of BGP network. So over here, whenever we are saying that the purpose of route reflectors, so it will be improving the scalability of BGP networks. But see, option number A and D are correct. But how we can say and how we can define that which one is correct over here? So make sure if you are asked such kind of question, if anyone is asking you the same question, that what's the primary purpose for BGP route reflectors? Over here, BGP route reflectors is always going to be used in scenarios where you are implementing IBGP. So scalability of BGP networks will be improved. But if the option number D would have been to improve the scalability of IBGP networks, then D would have been the correct answer. But this time we are going to say that the option number A, that's the correct answer, because it will just reduce the number of BGP pairing sessions, which we create by using full mesh neighborship. So that's an alternate scalable approach, which we are going to use in BGP for making sure that we are going to reduce the number of BGP pairing sessions over here. So these are top 10 interview questions from OSPF and BGP, guys. I hope you all find these questions useful. In case if you have any doubts, any queries on any of the question, feel free to reach us out on the comment box. We'll be replying and responding you back on your query. And that is it, guys, for this Q&A series. We'll be connecting back on next Sunday live 8 p.m. That's it for today's session. I hope you all enjoyed. Once again, very thank you. And let's end this Q&A series for today. Thank you.